Right, welcome back to the Me, Myself, and Hopefully You podcast. My name is Tariq, a 19-year-old university student currently experiencing a midlife crisis. Why, you might ask? Because I have no idea what I want to do with my life, where I'm going to end up, or to be honest, I don't know anything at all. I'm a bit confused during this pandemic, as probably are you. If you can relate to me, then this podcast might be for you because I'm going to interview guests from an array of backgrounds to speak more about and hear more about their life. And hopefully, by learning about them and the lessons they have discovered, that doesn't make sense, the lessons they've learned, I can learn a bit more about myself too. I changed the intro there. If you noticed, let me know. If you didn't notice, then you don't watch enough episodes of this podcast, and you should because it's an amazing podcast. Anyway, why do I get distracted with intros and outros? It's just disrespectful. Honestly, I need to stop doing that. But I'm going to carry it on because this isn't professional. This is all about having a bit of fun. Anyway, my guest at this time is a former NFL cheerleader, model, actress, producer, and host of SoCal Sweat on the Bleav Podcast Network. She tells me more about what it was like growing up in a Russian Orthodox family, how she got into cheerleading, the crazy and very scary world of being a model and working for an NFL team, along with her worrying experience of sexual assault in the acting industry. Please join me in welcoming the lovely Anne McDaniels. And I just want to start off with some quick fire questions just to get to know you a bit more. My first quick fire question is going to be, what is the sort of last thing or last picture on your camera roll?
Oh, well, thank you so much for asking, Tariq. Probably, I actually just posted a podcast this morning on 10 quick tips to happiness. People are very stressed out. And so I just took a screenshot because I'm doing several social media posts on keys to happiness. So I did like through TikTok, and I also took a bunch of screenshots from Clubhouse. Have you heard of Clubhouse?
Yeah, it's the new app that's sort of taking everything by storm. Yeah.
It's amazing. So I always I'm listening to music and then I'm like podcasts and then I'm doing something else. I've got the earbuds in one in each ear. And every time someone comes up, especially for the opportunity to interview for a podcast, I screenshot it and then I get back to them later on Instagram. For example, a woman came up this morning saying she has a mental health app for children. So she's hitting all the parents. So I thought, what a great thing to have on my podcast. So I take screenshots of that.
Okay, very nice. So what's the name of your podcast?
It's called it's Bleav SoCal Sweat. So as a former NFL cheerleader, I was approached by someone from ESPN to start this. And the Bleav Network is a huge network of sports, health, nutrition, everything like that, business. And so he said, give us a perspective of a former NFL cheerleader and fitness model in the perspective of Southern California, which is the mecca of fitness. Yet we don't have gyms anymore. Okay. So yeah. So it's called SoCal Sweat. Bleav SoCal Sweat.
I'll leave that the link to the podcast in the description below or in the description on the Spotify version.
Thanks, Tariq.
One you're using, no worries. The next quick fire question that I've got is I sort of already know the answer. So normally I ask people sort of who their role models are, who their number one role model will be. Now, when I was doing research for you, it came up that you described your mother and grandparents as your role models. Am I right there?
Absolutely. And
why is that?
The discipline instilled in me, and our grandparents, a lot of them are immigrants or they come from the old country. And as a child, I absolutely hated the rules. The rules were so ridiculous and so strict, but I really admire them for putting up with so many different things and staying on track. Old-fashioned values, being grounded, and everything we hear about with mental health today, it goes back to like the old country of how our parents were raised before coming to America. So I guess I just look at them as such hard workers, disciplinarians. They never really strayed from their values, even if it was annoying. So I really appreciate that. I also love the character. My favorite movie is Basic Instinct. And there's a character called Catherine Trammell, and she's a killer, but she's a very strong woman. So if you look past the murdering tendencies.
Look past the biggest part about her character.
Yes.
Then she's good, yeah.
she bulldozes men. There's something about empowering women. And I've never chosen to get married or have kids. It's never been in me. Even when I was a child and I played with Barbies, I never really played with dolls. I just played with like Barbies, and I never had them get married. I never had them have babies. I always had them go out with the girlfriends, even as a child. And I played with race cars. So it was kind of paving the way for just a little bit of a tomboy. I'm very, very feminine, but I never wanted to get married. And I was raised by a single mother. My parents were divorced at 4. And maybe that laid the path. I'm not sure, but I always saw women of such strength, I think. So yeah.
Oh, that's definitely something that I didn't have noted down, but it's something that we should definitely get into that topic, because that's very interesting. You don't normally hear things of men or women sort of not choosing not to get married, and especially women not having children is sort of very uncommon. But we'll definitely get into that topic because that's very interesting. Especially considering the profession that you ended up going into. My third and final quick fire question to you is: if there, God forbid, there was a house fire, and everyone survived, so every person, every family member survived, your pets survived if you've got any, but you could only preserve, or you could only protect one item. You could only take one item out with you. It has to be a physical thing. It can't be your phone because you have your phone with you. It's got to be something that normally stays in the house.
Definitely my laptop and all the backup drives, as well as I have a collection of absolutely gorgeous Russian Orthodox icons. And I have my grandfather's, who was a Russian Orthodox deacon, cross. And that's very special to me. Very special. And he's deceased, and it's very special to me. And I have kind of a shrine in a corner. Like if someone were to come in, I'm not like ultra religious, but I am. I really, I don't like speak it, but I live the life, and I give gratitude every day, all day. And I have the most gorgeous shrine. And a lot of these icons are from Moscow, and they're blessed, and they're prized possessions, including my grandfather's cross.
Yeah, no, I bet, especially when you keep those sort of little things that grandparents, especially when they pass on, and you keep those little things that when you're growing up, you sort of go, oh, what's that? What's, whatever. When you're older, you sort of appreciate them more because it belonged to them. And it's part of not only their heritage, but also your heritage. Yeah. Like, your Russian past, or your Russian sort of heritage and your background, it's all sort of there. And we will get to that. But before I get to that, sort of your how your sort of how what it was like growing up in a Russian strict Orthodox home. Could you introduce yourself to the viewers and listeners?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for bringing me on today, Tarek. I'm happy to be here. Pleasure. My name is Ann McDaniels, and I am originally from a very small town in the Midwestern part of America. It's called Wisconsin. And people know it usually all over the world as cheese. Lots of good cheese, lots of farming. So it was a very small town, and we grew up, it was basically kind of a farming town. And I grew up around a lot of Protestants. It was very Protestant driven, and our family was Eastern Orthodox, which is very uncommon even in the state. And so we were always kind of strange. I mean, I always had like great friends and had a wonderful upbringing in childhood, but our church was very strict, and our rules and regulations in the households were also very strict. It was grades, piano, music was very, very, we all sung as a family a cappella in the church, and that was very strong. As a child, I was embarrassed by it. I'm like, oh, so embarrassing. A lot of times we had different foods, but now I love it. I really, really love it. So I actually went through all the high school and did everything. Homecoming queen. I was like, straight A student, captain of the dance team. Growing up in a small town, you have a lot more opportunities. So you could be captain or you could be president of so many things because it's a smaller market. So yeah. I was very diversified and segmented, which is really, I really am honored and blessed to have had that versus going to a huge school and not having the exposure. So I then went on to the University of Minnesota, and it was a huge university, which is about 2.5 hours away from where I was from. I had wanted to go to New York City, but I'm like, I was a little girl. I mean, I was just very sheltered, and I'm like, I would have been spit up and eaten alive. Although, no, maybe not. So I stayed close, and I was third generation to go there. And I started off in pre-pharmacy, pre-med. I loved pharmacy. I had worked in high school all the way through as a pharmacy technician. So I got to count the pills and speak with a pharmacist, sometimes speak with the clients. And I was fascinated by the pharmaceutical industry. And I started with pre-med, pre-pharm, went 3 years in, and it was like, it wasn't me. And during pharmacy school, I had to take business classes because sometimes if you go into pharmacy, you own your own business. So I found the business classes to be much more intriguing, much easier for myself. And with all the internships, because I'd worked in science labs, done all of that, I just found business to be much more my liking. And I had to work 3 jobs in college, and with all the organic chemistries and then bartending at night and doing everything else, it was, my grades just weren't there. So I had to like flood my business classes with straight A's just to, like, and then I got a wonderful position at General Mills. General Mills is a CPG, consumer packaged goods company. And I came out making bank. I was like, couldn't believe the salary I got right out of the gate, plus a sign-on bonus and a car. I never had a car in my entire life. So it was like, oh my gosh, all those internships paid off because I had to flood my resume with some really good things. And that was, I spent 4 years there, and I kept getting promoted, and I was really lucky, but I was always worried, like, I don't think I know what I'm talking about. It was imposter syndrome. I'm like, do I know what I'm even doing? What if I get discovered that I don't really know what I'm talking, because there was a lot of math involved, and I was like, some of this stuff. So anyway, I just didn't love corporate America. I gained so much insight, and I love General Mills for what they taught me, and wonderful connections. I would work there again. During that time, I was next to a guy in our cubicles. He had played football at the same university where I went to school. And we did not like working in a 9 to 5, but it was more like a 6 to 10. It was not a 9 to 5. And we vowed, we are going to try out for the NFL for him as a football player, and NFL cheerleader for me. And we worked our butts off. So there was a lot of working out. We kept each other in check.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have any dance experience whatsoever. The day I went to the tryouts, there were thousands of girls, and they only picked the top 25. Wow. So it went boom, 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 all the way down. So we had like a month of training camp. I didn't tell anybody except for Derek, like this guy, and then one other friend. And
your parents?
I didn't know, not at all. At all. I told the guy that I was dating at the time, and then for some reason, my godparents and my mom found out from some friend. I think my boyfriend told them, because I kept a lot of things that was frivolous. To my family, that is very, no, we don't do that. Academics, this kind of thing. They showed up for the final tryout because it was in the public eye. The rest of it was very private. I made the team, and I couldn't believe it because I literally faked my way through it. I mean, I taught myself how to dance, and I'm an athlete. So I figured it out, and I was always fascinated by dancing and the entertainment business. But it's like, you can't do that. No, we don't do that kind of stuff. So once I made the team, I just thought, this is what I love. I love the dancing, the spotlight, the public relations. My favorite part about it was the charity that you can give, because when you're on a platform and people look to you sort of as a role model, you can do so many more things, and people will listen, whether it be like just a lot of charity work, a lot of things for breast cancer and the handicapped, and Habitat for Humanity, which are big things here for philanthropy. So I fell in love with philanthropy and giving back, plus sports. I mean, entertainment. It was just wonderful. So I had to go, I would work out in the mornings from like 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. I'd work all day, then go to practice for 5 hours, at night, go home, bring my laptop home, work, get up the next morning, do the same thing. So I did that and I finally resigned. I put in about a month notice, thanking them so much. But I moved to New York without a job, but I had like a modeling contract. So I just split and I went to New York City. I went there with no side job and I got an apartment in Soho, which is the fashion district.
Okay.
And I told myself, you are going to figure this out while you're modeling. You need to get a little bit of a side job because New York's expensive. So I got a job in sales right away. I used to speak French. I speak proficient French now, like je parle français, mais ce n'est pas bon. And my clients were Louis Vuitton, Prada. I had these unbelievable clients doing their sales for their advertising. So I was able to learn New York City and Manhattan right away. And then being in sales in New York City, you've got to get damn tough. So I learned right away, like cut the small town. Like I was always like, hi, saying hi to everybody on the street. They're gonna think you're crazy. So I had to toughen myself up. And during the time, I had changed my voice. Women speak with a higher pitch. And when I was at General Mills, the company beforehand, I realized I'm a woman. And also at the same time, I was an NFL cheerleader. So I'm in like swimsuit photos, calendar photos, pretty much half naked, dancing. Yet I'm in corporate America working with men. So I realized
the opposite completely.
So I changed my voice. I just kind of like went lower, a little bit of a lower octave. Because I'm like usually like this, like you gotta. So I changed that and I noticed a drastic difference. And I also noticed my handshake. I wanted it much, much stronger.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot of men don't, and I'm not ripping on men, but I would find that sometimes they'd go like this, like almost saying, no, your handshake's a little too aggressive. And it reminded me of the playing with the Barbies, how much I look to women as strength. And I'm like, no. So I guess that was kind of a transition too, because here I am very sexy in the spotlight, and then I had to be a business person. So there was just some changes that I really had to make and change my intonation.
Yeah, no, I mean, from all that, there's actually it's actually before I start saying anything, it's weird you mentioned that handshake thing because handshakes. When I first came to university here before COVID, I came on a little summer school thing, and one of the first they were teaching us about networking, and one of the first things they taught us when we were allowed to handshake people was how to offer a handshake. And it's about sort of being firm and the importance of it. And one of the interesting things that they showed us how Donald Trump does his handshakes. And whatever you think of Donald Trump, if you actually look at his handshakes, he actually goes in there like this, makes sure that his hand is on top of the other person's, and then he grabs it towards him, essentially to show that, listen, I'm the boss here.
Power.
And he's always done that. It's all about power. And it's interesting that you talk about that because, especially like you said, and I know you said you're not hating on men, but especially as a woman, a model as well, men would have looked at you, and especially in corporate America, they would have looked at you and thought, she's going to be easy. I can get her to do this, or I'll make her sign this, or etc. etc. She'll be a walk in the park. I'll be able to walk all over her. But when you give that handshake, it's like, whoa, like as a guy, men know when a woman is, powerful. That you have when you're like they know that, all right, she's, she knows what she's talking about, and the handshake especially is sort of significant in that sense. And just in general, your story was actually quite relatable. Coming from a small town, myself, I'm from a small town as well, and then going out. But you didn't go to New York, and I didn't go to London because for me it was too big of a jump. Because I would have gone from a small town to a huge city, the capital. You would have gone from a small sort of area, small town, to New York. One of the most amazing and well-known cities in the world. So, but instead you go a little bit, easier than that. So instead of going to London, I'm about an hour and a half away from London. So just to be a little, just to challenge yourself, but not to go too crazy. And it's similar, like for you as well, because you sort of did that. And I sort of relate to your story in that sense. And I just find it fascinating how you went from, one end of the spectrum, and at one point you were on both ends of the spectrum where you were modeling, whatever time of the day, and then the next part of the day you were probably suited and booted, ready to do some business deals.
Yep, yep. So I
And
respect you for the same thing. That's very
mm,
cool. And I'm
it's
sure when you left your small town in Bangladesh, that maybe you got.
I'm not from Bangladesh. My parents are from Bangladesh. So I'm from
Oh,
England.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. I'm from England. I'm from a town near Manchester,
okay.
which is like completely different. The town that I'm from is completely different to sort of London and the city. It's a village. It's considered a village where I'm from.
Okay.
And so like loads of hills. There's not necessarily a lot of farming, but there's loads of hills, loads of greenery, etc. And then come in here where it's just a load of city, load of buildings. It is
Sure.
completely different. Um,
Are you Manchester United or Chelsea?
oh no, Man United all the way.
Okay.
Chelsea's in London, so Chelsea is a London club, and then there's Manchester United and there's Manchester City that are near Manchester.
Which one's more respected?
What between Manchester United and Chelsea?
Yeah.
Manchester United are like the biggest. Well, I'd obviously
They're
as a
like the
fan of Manchester
Yankees.
United- Yeah, do you know what? We actually are. I think the owners. Who won the Super Bowl this year?
Oh, it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, so their owners are the same owners as the Manchester United owners.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And
Well,
you,
that's
a lot of
interesting.
a lot of Manchester United fans were really annoyed because does Tom Brady play for them?
Yeah.
Am I right? So and apparently Tom Brady cost the owners a lot of money, and a lot of Manchester United fans were really annoyed because they were saying, look how much money they're spending on American football, but they won't give us the same money. Like we need the money to buy a certain player as well.
But they
So
won.
yeah, and a lot of Manchester United fans were really hoping that they wouldn't win because and I know we're getting off topic, but the Glazers who own Tampa Bay as well, either they own it all of it or they own part of it or something like that. They
Cool.
definitely own a bit at least. When they bought Manchester United, they took the club in debt into like hundreds of millions of debt, and essentially it put us into a lot of debt. They refused to spend the money. They were basically taking a lot of the money out of the club and refusing to spend any of the profits. And
Wow.
so a lot of the Man United fans despise the owners. They really hate them. And so when all the United fans found out about sort of this investment in Tampa Bay, they were like, right, we want Tampa Bay to lose this final. We want them to get completely destroyed. It will be the best thing ever. And there's a similar team as well. I think it might be the Yankees, but I'm not sure. That's owned by the owner of Arsenal Football Club, which is another football club in London.
I'm gonna look that up.
It's a big team. His name's Stan Kroenke. I don't know if you might have heard of him or not.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up. But even so, I mean, the Tampa Bay also bought, Gronkowski. So there was the two of them together.
Okay.
So I'm sure it was even more money.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I would think that, because Tom Brady's a pretty good guy, but then again, he had nothing to do with it. You'd think that he'd be like, know this, but it's not common knowledge. Maybe
It's
take
not.
less of a salary to give to other teams. But
I mean, I think, to be fair, I think I don't know how much Tom Brady's on, but I don't know how much you know about. You guys call it soccer, we call it football. So like the amount of money that soccer makes is ridiculous. I think it's the most well-known sport in the world, whilst football or American football is quite literally just America that are into it.
absolutely.
Similar
But
to
the number
NBA
one,
as well, yeah.
exactly. But the number one most recognized team in the world are the Yankees, the New York Yankees baseball.
Are they?
Yeah, it's the most.
See, there was a debate I remember straight after the Super Bowl where someone, I think it might have been ESPN or something, that came out and they tweeted something. They tweeted out a list of the most recognized sports people in the world, and they had Tom Brady at the top, and basically all European soccer fans were fuming because they said no way. They was like, there's no way, because and the evidence, they used different sort of types of evidence, but one of them they used was Tom Brady had, I think, 9 million Instagram followers. And then I think Cristiano Ronaldo has like 200 million or something crazy. So it's like, that was like, oh, come on. Oh, quite clearly soccer is. Well, anyway, that's a debate.
And even Americans, a lot of Americans hate Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. His book,
Why?
TB12, because he's the GOAT.
Okay.
Yep. And he beats so many teams. And it's like, people were sick of the Patriots. Then he went to Buccaneers, just proved, because he always wins, but people want a team that always wins. But I love him, and I got his book. It's called TB12, all about his discipline. It's phenomenal. So I love him,
It's
but a lot of
interesting
Americans
that.
hate him.
Yeah, it's interesting that because do Americans feel the same about Michael Jordan and LeBron James?
Oh, they pretty much love those two. Michael Jordan has been known as kind of being an asshole, but people love
Mm,
people love the greats. But
yeah.
for some reason, people either love Tom Brady or don't like Tom Brady. So yeah.
I guess Cristiano Ronaldo's very. So we have in soccer. I don't know if you've ever heard of these
Yep.
two. We've got Messi and Ronaldo,
Yep.
and they're like the two of the best. And you either think Messi's the best player in the world, or you think Ronaldo's the best player in the world. It's
Sure.
either or, one or the other. And there's a huge debate about that. But I wouldn't say anyone sort of goes, "Oh, I really don't like Ronaldo. I really don't like Messi." Unlike in America, I'm quite shocked about that because I thought
We
everyone in America would love Tom Brady.
we probably have so many players and so many teams that
Mm.
it's just like they get sick of them over and over again. And by the way, I saw Messi at it was a hotel. He was eating lunch at a hotel in Redondo
Wow.
Beach, California, last summer. Oh no, it was 2 summers ago. And he was like, he just seemed like larger than life, but yet
Yeah.
he was very subtle. And I
Mm.
we were all staring at him because it's
He's
that's a
known
big
for
one.
being a lot more sort of humble when it comes to, and I've got nothing against Ronaldo either. But Ronaldo's more of a I'm the best sort of big character. Messi's more of a I'd rather just lay low a little. I mean, he does have his ego. I guess if you're considered as one of the greatest, you've got to have a bit of ego about you.
Right.
But Ronaldo's definitely the one that's got more of the ego, more of the sort of
Has to prove
attention.
something all the time.
Yeah, more of the sort of contracts, business contracts. Whilst Messi just sort of plays football, does a few things here and there. Ronaldo
Sure.
does everything.
Okay.
Similar to David Beckham, I guess. Anyway, we're getting completely off topic, but
Love
that's one of the
sports.
reasons why I want. Yeah, I know sports. I mean, you mentioned that about how much you love sports. And America is such. I mean, that's why I wanted to get you on. I've said it before on the podcast. I'm so fascinated by American, particularly American sports. But I digress. Let's go a little bit sort of from. Let's go right to the beginning. I guess is sort of what was it like. Um, you mentioned earlier on about sort of growing up in the strict Orthodox, household, and it was, you were born in 1977, and so that was during sort of the Cold War, wasn't it? By the way, before I say that, when I read that you were born in 1977, I was very, very shocked because when I saw your picture, and then I thought, oh no, the picture must be old. But then when she comes on, she looked like she's but you don't look anything like that.
It makes
You
me
don't
so
look anything
mad.
like 44. You've definitely aged like way too good. You needed to give me the tips.
Thank you so much.
You look the same on the picture, and on the picture, I thought you were at least like 25.
I really appreciate that. What makes me so mad is International Movie Database, which it's on. That's illegal. They are not supposed to put the birth date on there. And
Oh, okay.
it makes people very, very angry. And it's not like I shouldn't be ashamed of it, but because I started entertainment so late, it really bugs me. And then there's a stigma, like she's probably too old, or she's gonna want to get married and settle down. No, I feel like I'm 12. So I'm actually quite angry to be
Yeah.
honest with you that it's out there.
Yeah,
It
you need
shouldn't
to
be
get-
out there.
Yeah, you need to get in contact with someone, find out how to
It
get
doesn't
rid of
matter. Like we've tried. All of the actresses have tried. It depended on when you got on that website and when you were chosen that the birth date went on there. And it makes me so angry.
Yeah, if that makes you angry, well, I mean, I can tell you right now, you definitely don't look like you were born in 1977.
Thank you.
You know what? It's a common theme. I get guests that have aged ridiculously well, and I just hope and pray I get to do the same thing. Right now, it's not going so good. I've got a beard.
No, you have a baby face though. You have a baby face, but you just seem mature. You just seem more mature than 19. But again, you grew up in, around London. So it's, there's a little bit different.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't
No,
know.
you look great. And honestly, just wear sunscreen. Just wear
Is
sunscreen.
that the secret?
Yep.
We don't get that much sun anyway. There's like there's no point of us wearing sunscreen anyway.
But even it'll come through the window. You're getting it all the time, and that's super aging. And then just like dropping the drinking, dropping the smoking. It's people with lifestyle. Yeah, I don't either. I'm so boring, but it's my choice.
Nah, it's great. Yep. Listen, my opinion on drinking is, why would you spend money on drinks when you can spend it on dessert?
Yes, thank you. What is your favorite dessert?
Oh no, I can't pick anything that's sweet. I'm eating. If it's sweet, I've got such a bad sweet tooth. It's ridiculous. I want syrup over everything. I'm so bad, and that's another reason I want to go to America, because I know Americans have sweet tooths as well. And in America, you have this amazing thing, right, which disgusts people in Britain, but it works in America. Is you combine savory with sweet, so like pancakes with syrup. Here, you can't do that, right? It's just wrong. But in America, you can combine sweet. Oh, I just want to go to America and eat the food.
People do chicken and waffles. It's a huge thing here.
I know.
LA especially.
It's brilliant. It's the best thing. Or like making like instead of burger buns, you use pancakes. It's the best thing. I can't wait to go to America and try food, because it's so good, and it's just I can't.
I'm so excited to have you here. We have to stay in touch for sure.
100%. We'll go to the place where there's the best dessert, and I just want to eat, and I just want to enjoy America. Everything America has to offer.
Yes, and the melting pot for desserts would probably be New York and LA.
I definitely want to go to New York because I want New York pizza as well, and New York bagels.
Yes.
Exactly. All of that. I want all the food. It's gonna be great.
So Tarek, I've got to tell you, if I were on my deathbed and getting the death sentence, what would be your favorite? What would be your last meal? Number one, it would be definitely sushi. I love sushi, but it would be chocolate molten cake. And it is from like a cheap chain restaurant in America called TGI Fridays. It is this enormous mound, and you cut into it, and it's just hot fudge that just swarms the plate. And you just like it just like you just want to drip it all over yourself. It's just wonderful.
I need it. We've actually got a TGI Fridays in Manchester, but I've never actually been. Maybe they sell it there. I might be able to actually.
And it's such a stupid cheap restaurant of all the restaurants, but for some reason, and it's like McDonald's French fries. It's like you gotta have it.
Is it that good? Oh,
yes.
Honestly, I'm just obsessed with
salivating. And a lot of people in America dip French fries into vanilla ice cream, just like you said, the salty and sweet.
Yeah, so. I've done that at McDonald's. Like some people find it weird, but I just think it's the best thing ever, because it's like it's the salt and sweet, but also the warm and the cold, or hot and cold. Like the opposites just work. Similar to modeling and being a businesswoman.
Absolutely, got to have salty and sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to your story, having opposites attract. They're the best things ever. So let's sort of let's stop getting distracted and get back to you. Although I'm sure people are enjoying the American British conversation. So you went to college, like you guys say, we call it university, and you got a marketing and international business degree. And then from there, you sort of mentioned how you went from corporate world and you became a cheerleader for the Minnesota Vikings. Now that's, like we sort of said, it's such a huge contradiction. Two completely different things: businesswoman, cheerleader. And especially as a cheerleader, I think maybe this is a British thing, but we don't have cheerleaders. Our sports teams don't really have that. I think there's one Premier League football team that does have it, but it's only for like a little bit. You guys, it seems like every time a team scores or gets, what do you call it in American football? Like
touchdown.
Touchdown, that's it. We have rugby and there's touchdowns as well. But so yeah, every time there's a touchdown, the cheerleaders go crazy. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, but it's all dancing. I mean, it's not, we're not just like cheerleaders. It's
okay.
People look at it as like, just with pom-poms. We train hard. We train like athletes. We have body fats taken, weights taken. It's strict parameters. And we're dancing, and we have like 40 billion routines that we have to know and memorize, and we're always on. So it's not just cheering. We'll do that. That's like maybe 1% of what we do. Yeah.
So I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like everyone's got these misconceptions, especially around cheerleaders and then models as well. But you've got, whilst you did it, is you had this, business degree. Is that common to have sort of cheerleaders and models that have, essentially brains and beauty, which is something that a lot of people wouldn't associate with modeling or with cheerleading?
Sure. Well, that's a really good question. And when I got onto the team, the requirements are that you have to be a student, a mother, or have an occupation, because they don't want dumb girls. I don't want to say dumb girls, but they don't want anybody on the team that is not well spoken. And you could have the best dancer, most beautiful girl, but if she can't talk, and if she can't work with the public, and can't memorize and have a conversation, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're out. So you have to have kind of the gift of gab, education, just be forward thinking, being able to, if someone asks you about the team, you have to have some general knowledge of what's going on, and you have to know world affairs. If someone comes up to you and talks about Trump, I mean, we stay out of politics, but just you have to know what's going on in the world. So you can't really be dumb. So that's tested, and we go through vigorous interview processes as well, just to make sure that, you know, we can be because it's basically public relations for the teams on top of it. So
is that what they? So as a cheerleader, is that what you do? Do you go around sort of what is it that you do outside of outside of the game itself?
A
What
lot
do
of
you do?
appearances, a lot of appearances. A lot of times we sign autographs and speak, like we would do like a race for the cure, which is a huge breast cancer race. So we're always there supporting Habitat for Humanity, which builds homes for people. You know, just the greater good of whatever the charities are, we're there supporting. And every time the players, but we always had to stay away from the players. Like, for example, I was next to Randy Moss and we were both signing autographs, and my Sharpie ran out of ink. So I said, Randy, can I get that other Sharpie? And he handed it to me. And I got in trouble because if we're speaking to the player in public and we're on cameras all the time, that can look like, are they dating?
Okay.
Things happen so fast.
Yeah.
We are never allowed to wear anything branded outside of the stadiums. If we were to go to the grocery store after practice, I'm sweaty, I'm hungry, it's 11:30 at night, I have to work in the morning, I'm starving, I'm going to go to the grocery store and pick up some supplies. Take off the jacket. I cannot have the jacket on. Plus, if I were to look sweaty and I would look, maybe my hair is not in place how they want it, someone could snap a picture, ESPN, what have you, we get in big trouble. So these are very, very, very strict rules. So I really, a couple times I got in trouble for things that I really won't get into. I tend to push the envelope with rules sometimes, but I learn fast and hard. And we had one girl who was the best dancer on the team. She had been raised as a dancer since she was like 2 years old. She had dated someone on the team. He was a rookie quarterback. He was like 5 string, like way down here.
Yeah.
And they were dating, and it was found out, and she was kicked off immediately.
Wow.
She was a captain. But you know, you have to have those rules because it's that high end, and it's very, very strict. And if you're not willing to put up with the strictness and everything like that, especially the weigh-ins, and there's a lot of people that will not maintain weight, and then there's a lot of problems there. So being in my industry, and according to health, the eating disorders are very prevalent, you know, and the food issues. And that's why I wanted to do the podcast on fitness, health, and wellness, because it has to be almost a full-time job. I'm writing a book right now on how to break into modeling and be very, very successful with it. And part of some of the chapters are going to be about maintaining, and you can get kicked off a shoot right away. So there's a lot of pressures, and people, and I have seen past cheerleaders leave the team, and all of a sudden they get so sick of that strictness that they'll blow up, and not to be like they're overweight, but that's a problem because they rebel. I feel very blessed and lucky because growing up the way I did, being Russian Orthodox, we have to fast all the time. There's always fasting. And I never really understood what it was. I understand you take God first over your, you know, everything else, and your gluttony and everything like that. And so I was always raised in a strict household with the food, sometimes actually maybe to the extreme. And my parents are both athletes, and my mom's very, very strict with what she eats, and she's always been exercising. So it wasn't news to me, and I actually embraced it. I actually like it. I actually like watch things on Marines and watch things on discipline. It actually drives me. So I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed the weigh-ins, which is really weird. And that would also create a lot of animosity on the team. So that's a big interest of my own. So
see, again, I never thought I would relate so much to a former NFL cheerleader, a model, I'm a business leader, woman, etc.
Well, you're
in that sense,
you're hot, Tarek.
I don't think I'll ever get called that again. I'm gonna clip that up and save it for the rest of my life. I'm gonna that's gonna be the trailer for the for the
Awesome.
episode. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh yeah. See, you're making me blush now. I forgot what I was gonna say.
I'll say it in a better way. Tarek, you're
no, don't. Oh, okay, no, I remember. So it was the reason why I can relate to that is, I was born in a Muslim household, strict as well, not extremely strict, but strict to a certain extent, and definitely strict in other people's eyes, especially people that aren't religious. And I fasted as well, so we fast for roughly 30 days every year. I don't know, is that more or less than what you guys would do?
Ramadan is huge also.
Yeah, so
it's all through the year. All
is
through
it? Okay.
Yeah.
How many days would you say is altogether in the year, roughly?
Oh gosh, well, it's every Wednesday and Friday basically.
Oh wow!
On certain meats and dairy, and always during Lent. That's the 40 days. We don't touch meat or dairy during Lent. Okay. My grandfather was so strict that he would put orange juice on his breakfast cereal for breakfast, so he didn't touch it. We also can't have any breakfast or anything to eat from midnight on to take communion. And we cannot take communion unless we go to confession first. Whereas a lot of other ones, you can it's like a free for all. You can take communion.
Yeah.
I would not be allowed to take communion anywhere else. And someone coming in to ours can't take communion. And people would be very offended by that. Like, what do you mean? We can take communion at our church. Well, no, you can't here. So I kind of like the exclusivity of it. And I don't mean to be like a snotty about it, like, oh, we don't welcome people. But we're not evangelist. We're not evangelist type of religion, whereas some people are. And it's interesting because as of late, since I've gotten into I had an injury, people are always inviting me to their Bible studies. And I'm like, I don't do Bible study. I don't congregate and talk about, that's just not what we do. And I finally had to say, like, listen, I love you guys. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. That's not my thing. It's been interesting.
You don't sort of like, just to explain sort of evangelism, you don't sort of promote your religion to other people and invite them in that sense.
Yep. And when people come in, they don't just come in and join the church. You've got to take a lot of, it's almost like Judaism where you've got to take all those classes. And I'm sure with Muslim too. And we always kind of look at people like, it's not like we don't welcome people, but it's like, usually you're born into it. Usually it's kind of a religion like Muslim, basically. It's sort of a culture.
Yeah. I mean, I think unlike sort of Orthodox Christianity and Judaism, with Islam, it's very easy to become a Muslim. You can, and I guess there's pros and cons to both sides. With us, all you've got to do is say it's called the Shahada, which is you basically, all you've got to do is say, I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except God, and that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the final messenger. If you say that sentence, you're automatically a Muslim. And then from then you learn how to be a better Muslim, and that's sort of a process that you have throughout your whole life. You learn how to read the Quran, etc., and that's a process.
Whilst are you baptized or anything like that?
No, but I mean, I guess you could call that Shahada the baptism, but you don't really have anyone sort of giving, a cross on your forehead or anything like that, or submerging you in the water, or anything like that. It's drowning someone. Yeah, no, we don't have anything like that. Like, so you could be on your own and you could just say it to you, like say you're someone that's, you're looking, you want to become a Muslim, but you don't have a mosque nearby you. You could just say it to yourself and you're a Muslim now. And you could go, and it's, completely okay. And I know you said that there's sort of an exclusivity when it comes to the church. Whilst with us, whether you're a Muslim or not, you can walk, you should be able to walk into any mosque. Some people are a bit weird and strict, but when it comes to the Quran itself, and the Islamic teachings, you are allowed to just walk into a mosque, whether you're a Muslim or not. If you want to ask a question, you can ask a question. I've had teachers, one of my old religious teachers in school, he used to go into mosques all the time and just take pictures, ask questions, and he loved it. You're allowed to do that. So I guess that's sort of the difference there. Sorry, I'm
so surprised. That's so interesting. But like I myself, if I were to say that statement and then walk into a mosque, I would feel very, very disrespectful with my bun and my little white puffy jacket. I would not. Can people just walk in?
Yeah. So I mean, there are there's sections to the mosque. So if you're male, there's the male section. If you're female, the female section.
We
So
used to
obviously,
have that.
yeah. So obviously, you wouldn't walk into the. I mean, you could just walk into the male section, and a man might, sort of go, oh, the female.
I
section's
would with
over
my
there if you wanna get
handshake.
there."
I would do that with my
Yeah,
handshake.
exactly. And he might direct you, or he might. I think we did have on one occasion there was a woman that came in once and wanted to learn more, and I think we were all praying, and she just sort of stood in the back. And then the imam, who is the leader of the prayer, he just sort of came over to her and said, "Oh, you okay? Would you like some help?" Because there was no one in the female section, so he couldn't, take her over there. So he just sort of said, "Oh, I can help you out. I can answer any questions that you might have, or blah blah blah." So it's a lot, it's a lot more open than Judaism and Orthodox Christianity in that sense.
Interesting.
And I've studied I've been lucky enough to study religion in school, so like different different types of religions as well. Christianity was one of them, Judaism, etc., etc. I did it at a fairly high level, so I don't do it for my degree, but before the level of the degree, which in England we call A levels, I did it for that, which was always sort of very interesting. Yeah,
and Tarek, I don't want to be taken out of context. People can still visit our church. It's just not like take communion and do all of that stuff.
Yeah,
and
of
you
course,
can't just join like that.
You can't just join like that, essentially. Unlike with Islam, it's a little bit easier. And again, there's pros and cons to both. You know what I mean? Like I said, in Islam, you can do it in 10 seconds. You can equally lose your faith in 10 seconds as well. If you, there's a lot of ways where you can, essentially lose, the status of being a Muslim. Very easy. Anyway, so again, we're getting distracted.
Super interesting.
I love conversations like this.
Thank you for that.
So from being a cheerleader for the Minnesota Vikings, it was, and you ended up going into modeling. And you, am I right in saying you were a cheerleader whilst you were doing the corporate business stuff?
Just corporate America at the same time as the cheerleading. We were not allowed to take any modeling jobs or anything like that. I got in big trouble because, boxing. I was a ring card girl, so I got hired as a ring card girl. I got in the biggest trouble. Not allowed to do that. Not allowed because
so many rules.
So many rules. So that would be considered sort of just too sexy, and that does not. We have to maintain sort of the girl next door, all American happy.
Yeah.
And they did not look. Even though it was a great boxing match, it was for like HBO. Not allowed, and I got in big trouble for that.
Wow.
So you cannot, if you were to take a modeling job, it has to be approved by the coaches. And so at that point, I didn't have time. I didn't have 2 minutes to sleep, so I wasn't able to do that. But I started getting the thing is, I was scouted as a child for modeling. My mom, it happened in a mall when I was younger. My mom said, absolutely not.
Because she was Orthodox Christian.
Yep. That, and just like, she basically said, I don't want my daughter to turn into a little bitch. So that, and it was, and same as pageants, because they reach out to me, do you want to be in a pageant, like beauty pageants, like, this type of thing. Not allowed. It was also very expensive. And my mom wasn't able to drive me to shoots and things like that. So it wasn't, and I look back and I was so angry at that point because I'm like, why can't I do that? Looking back now, and this is going to be part of my book, I wouldn't have been ready. And with the amount of pressures and pedophilia for kids, I don't recommend it unless the parents are super strong and they're watching everything, So I guess I'm a firm believer in maybe wait to the point that they can make their own decisions, because even in acting here, I'll go to auditions or modeling castings, and the parents will be, anybody under 18 has to be with a parent. Sometimes you see these kids playing with their video games, and the mother always wanted to go in entertainment. So she's like pushing your kid, no, memorize your lines. And it's so sick. It's so sick. And the kids are miserable. And some genuinely love it, and they're prodigies and they're amazing. But I think a child should be a child. And especially in this day with social media, there's just too much.
There's less time these days, especially right now. There's less time to be a child now. It's like you're sort of, because of, I mean, you're a child, but you're not child in the traditional sense where you're out and about. Because even when I look at my younger siblings, I go, mate, when I was your age, and it wasn't. It's not like I'm saying it as if I'm 40 years old, but I'm only 19.
But
And
tech
they're like,
happened fast.
yeah,
So it's different.
they're only like 12 years younger than me. And I think when I was your age, I was going outside. I was in the garden all day, and it's not like I was playing with other kids. I was by myself, using my imagination, playing with, finding bricks and, making little houses, or, getting my toys and fixing them, breaking them, fixing them, just doing whatever. There's no, tablets weren't a thing. Whilst, I'm looking at my little brother and my little sister, and, they're on their tablets, and other kids as well. I was in a supermarket actually, and it was just recently. I was in the supermarket, and I think you had the mum that was pushing the trolley, and then you had her two kids, both just walking on their phones. And I thought, imagine, like, you're going to a supermarket. Can you not just leave your phone at home? Do your kids really need the phone to like stay calm?
Absolutely.
I find it so fascinating.
It's a big problem, and I think that kids are getting very antisocial, and it's just, and they're also ultra sexualized. For example, I tried to go for a walk yesterday, and there was this very voluptuous woman, and she was wearing a gold lame dress with her breasts hanging out, and looked very, very kind of, we could say, sleazy, I must say. And I wouldn't.
These are your words, not mine. If I said this, I'd get in trouble. But okay.
She was bona fide, and she had a set of twin girls. And I noticed, and I walked by, and I waved at the girls because they looked miserable. They had to take Instagram shots of their mother. They were like 8 years old. She was literally bending over with really sexualized poses. It's like the kids had just gotten done with school. They had their little backpacks on. And when I waved, they were like super identical. And they just kind of both had this like miserable smile, like, hey. And I just was so embarrassed. And I took like a screenshot with my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, this is just terrible. But and that's an extreme case. But why should they be doing that? And then they're going to get hypersexualized as young girls as well. And they're seeing their mother do that. And maybe she's on a dating website or some porn website trying to like, I just can't. There's so many problems with that.
It's so interesting, especially coming from your perspective, because I think most people would have assumed, well, you're a model. Surely you should be all over this. Like this idea
Models there's a different line. There's a line when you say model or dancer, there's a gray area for both.
I bet, yeah. But I think that, again, it's another assumption. And again, another reason why I wanted to get you on is to hear more, what is the reality of modeling, etc. Because everyone's got the assumptions, dumb blonde girl, probably couldn't do well in school and so dropped out, and then she ended up getting a job, all these sort of assumptions. And, you're breaking every single one of them down so far. And I'm actually getting such a much more appreciation of, especially right now, because we're on the cheerleading side of things, cheerleaders and the restrictions. Because if you let's say you didn't tell me the title cheerleader, and you said there's this one person who can't do this, can't wear branded clothing, can't be sweating outside, can't be dating people that she works with or people that kind of work with her, I can't do that, I'd be thinking she probably is some really famous businesswoman, or she's probably an athlete, or something like that. I would have never guessed cheerleader. And I think it's making me appreciate that job role a lot more, because it requires academics, it requires being able to talk, something that not everyone can do. It's very underrated, being able to talk. And it also requires a lot of professionalism to a degree that most jobs, wouldn't even go to that extent. If you work at most jobs, maybe dating in the workplace is frowned upon, but you won't get sacked for it.
Right.
Whilst in here, you would actually get fired for dating someone.
It's because it's high profile and you're on camera all the time. There are cameras in the practice facilities. On any given Tuesday, people could come in from CBS Sports, NBC Sports, doing interviews. A bunch of cheerleaders walk by. If they look like hell, it can't happen. Every practice we had to show up with our hair long down, full makeup. I hate wearing makeup, Tarek. I hate wearing.
You don't need it, Anne. You don't need it.
Well,
you look amazing without it.
I just hate it. But we had to have full red lips, full lashes, everything, every day.
Wow.
So because if you look haggard or if you look bad, that they snap a photo and they put it in the thing. One girl just got in trouble for wearing lingerie in her Instagram photo. She was taken off the team. Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow. Her own Instagram.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating, because there's this one side where everyone sort of thinks these girls are, sexualized. They're allowed to show whatever they want. They can do whatever they want, etc. But then there's this other side which is so strict, and you think that they're all, these girls, they get to dance for a living, they get to travel all the world, they get to hang around with, football players and sports people. It must be great and whatever. But and it might seem like it's, so much freedom, but there's so many my mind is actually blown as to
So
how many
many.
restrictions there are on these people. Like, and surely mentally that must be so exhausting for whoever you are, whether you're a mother or whether you're a student. That must be so draining, the fact that there's, these coaches that have such a hold on your life even outside of the job.
Yeah. And a lot of people can't handle that. And when you sign up for that, it is, there's a show that might be very interesting if your listeners would ever want to watch it. It's called Making the Team, and it's about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. And it's a documentary, and it is absolutely fascinating. And it will go through, it goes through the process. So you can see everything. You can see exactly what we go through. So it's called,
Yeah,
it's Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team.
I'll definitely check that out.
Because Dallas is the number one most recognized, because they're the oldest, and
Ah.
Jerry Jones just has more money than God. It's so those cheerleaders are very front and center, because that's like it's almost like the Yankees of that for the cheerleading side. So watching that documentary, and there's several seasons. I think they just did season 15 during COVID. So it just you'll see just the strictness of that.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, just to sum up that period of your life, what was that like? Sort of, you're cheerleading, your the stress as well, but also, you're doing something pretty amazing in the sense that all eyes are on you. Sometime at one point, all eyes will be on you. You're getting paid to go to these football games, which I bet 99% of Americans would love. Get paid to go to the football games.
Right.
What was that experience like?
If we were to talk about the money side, that's a huge controversy in America. In fact, there have been lawsuits nailing the NFL for unfair practices for the cheerleaders. But it's, to me, it's like, you knew what you signed up for. I hate to say it, but you knew what you signed up for.
I love
And
how straightforward you are. It's so
yeah,
interesting.
I just get sick. I get sick of BS. Like,
Okay.
don't BS me, and don't complain. Don't be like entitled. And I know that we work our butts off, and that is true. They work their butts off. But if you want to be on that level, you got to pay the piper, because a lot of people are looking at it as a stepping stone. And a lot of people sometimes want to be sports reporters. So, hey, this is then you look at this as an internship. Stop bitching about it. Learn the job. Don't talk about the fact that you want to be a sports reporter, but learn, and then grow from that. Take it as a stepping stone in a launch platform. If you hate it that bad, resign. A million girls would kill for your spot. And if you're not willing to put up with it, it's like, when you're in the top 2% elite, you gotta keep up.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, I don't like entitlement. I don't like people feeling that they're owed something. However, the cheerleaders should be paid more money. They really should.
Yeah.
But if you think it's unfair in the beginning, then don't try out, because you take other people's spots. So use it for what it is. It's a launch platform. You get paid to work out. You get paid to tan. You get a ton of free stuff, ton of free perks, unbelievable networking, free gym, everything. So I
Wow.
guess it's just.
So is that what you saw it as? Did you see it as a platform?
I did.
Yeah. So as a springboard into modeling, was that the sort of always
It was
the
more
idea?
of a introduction into entertainment, because it's like,
Okay.
this is what I love to do, and I'd always wanted to dance and perform, and then I just realized I just gained confidence from it.
What did your mum think of it when you got into the cheerleading team?
She really couldn't believe it. She's like, "Oh my God, I just wasn't prepared for this much. And when she went to a game, she's like, I'm pretty impressed, but she didn't like the sexualization of it. I guess I would say, and the fact that it was too sexy. It was a little bit of a problem, and my biggest worry was my grandfather. And
Yeah.
then when he put my poster up, the poster of the team, and he's a doctor as well. In his home office, I was like,
That must have been, yeah.
yeah, and I couldn't believe it. And I just thought, I never would have thought you would have been okay with this, but
That must have been the sort of, I've
Yep.
got my approval there. Not that you
Yep.
needed the approval, but sort of you wanted that approval. And to get it from your grandfather, who one would have been
Ultimate
extremely
religion.
traditional, yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately religious, extremely traditional, and also as he's a man, so he would have been like very protective over his granddaughter. He would have been like, no, she can't do that, she can't do this, especially with the religion side of things. And
Yeah.
so for him to go, it's fine. That must have been like, well, if my granddad is saying it's fine, then it is clearly fine.
Right.
Wow.
Well, it's cool because he had rebelled. I learned that he had rebelled because his family wanted him to not learn English. They wanted him to stay on the farm. And it was like he taught himself English basically in high school. And so then his whole family went on to become doctors, engineers, the whole nine. So they were like, so he had rebelled. He also forged his mom's signature because he wanted to fight in the military. And she was like, and he forged her signature. So he himself rebelled, as religious as he was. So I think he had an appreciation.
Yeah, I think he probably saw you as a sort of, I think he saw himself in you in that sense. He was like, yeah, rebel, go against it a little, even on the religious side of things, just go against sort of what other people say.
Yeah.
Just do you. That's brilliant. So moving on from that, going into modeling, you mentioned that you went to New York. Was that the first time you'd gone to New York?
First time.
Yeah. So you've gone into New York, and this is mental. So you've gone in, you've got no job, you've got this modeling contract though, and then you ended up so you got a part-time job there or a side job as well.
I made it my full-time job to get a job, just to be like, because my apartment was like $4,500 in Soho. Like I had a posh ass apartment. Like it just was like, okay, you got to figure this out now. And stop saying hello to the people and the cockroaches. Don't say hello to the cockroaches. You're not that friendly, So I went through. One of the jobs was 6 interviews, and I got the job, and I just hit the ground running from there. Figured it out.
And how is that different from what you were doing as a cheerleader?
I was able to slow down in New York City. Okay. My life was so insane that I actually got a breather going from a small area to New York. I mean, it was the same adrenaline level.
Yeah.
And then I realized how much I had to toughen myself up. So, and I'll never forget this. For the NFL, when you're on cameras and you're in a huge stadium, they put a lot of colors in your hair. So it's streaked with different like shades of blonde, because if you were like whip your hair on camera, you look like a lemon head. As a blonde, you look like a lemon. And so it has to be multifaceted. The more colors, the better it looks on camera. So we always had streaks in our hair. And I had moved to New York, and they're like, why do you look like a skunk? You look like a skunk. And so I'm like,
exactly what I'd imagine New Yorkers to say.
Oh yeah. And then they're like, do you have running bathrooms where you're from? They thought I was the biggest hick, and I had to like completely do another handshake. No, so it was interesting transition.
Wow. And so do you feel like as a model you got that freedom that you just weren't given as a cheerleader? Now you could sort of, you could post whatever you wanted now, or you could date whoever you wanted almost, and you had more of a sort of, you were more in a more of a stronger position to stand up for yourself.
Absolutely. And there were dangers on that. And it was the Mecca. It's the Mecca of modeling. It's the Mecca of fashion photographers, and you can get in a lot of trouble. And I found myself in situations where I'm very damn lucky I got out of, just because it's just it's a vulnerable industry where people love to go into. And a lot of people take that as, I'm going to take her for something,
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that. And I've had wonderful experiences, for the most 98% positive. But there have been times where people have crossed the line big time. I've been asked, do you want to sue this person? And it's like, you know what? I know what I could get. I could get pressed like crazy, but it's just like, I'm not going to tarnish my family that way. Yeah. But I've had some major things happen. And that's why I want to write a book on just warning. It's very glamorous on the outside, very glamorous, same as acting, same as the cheerleading. But modeling has a lot of bad things that can go wrong really quickly.
if you don't mind me asking, what are some of those bad things then?
You know, I'm afraid to I'm certainly not going to say any names, but this is a huge company. And I was modeling for them, and the designer, and he was pretty high up. He was like, had taken over the company. His family was very wealthy. He was larger than life. People were scared of him. And I was modeling their jeans line, and he was pretending to adjust, and he stuck his hand down the back.
Right. Okay.
And I immediately froze up. And I looked at the style, the women's stylist in the wardrobe, and I just was in shock. And the girl's like that, and she goes like that. And
Wow.
when he walked away, I was like shaking. I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. And they're like, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just let it go. Let it go. And I was like, I had to go back in the dressing room, and I was like hyperventilating. Like, it was just crazy. It was so vigorous, so aggressive and scary. And I just didn't ever want to portray myself in that light, but that was how easily that was done. You're nothing to me. You are a figurine. You are a statue. You are a mannequin. I will violate in whatever way I want and put up with it. And I never went back to that job. I finished out the contract, but because I think it was a 4-day contract, but when I was done, and it's just funny because 2 years ago, the guy that I was dating at the time, he said, well, karma's a bitch, isn't it? The guy his company got sued. It was a lot of unfair practices within the workplace, things like that. They didn't mention sexual harassment, but you could read between the lines of what
of course. Yeah.
So
That is, this sort of, I'm glad that there's more sort of women coming out and speaking about it, with the Me Too movement, etc.
But you're tarnished.
Yeah, because I think, and I'm not saying, I think the point that I want to sort of make there is sort of, I think when women hear it or when women experience it, I think for them it's like, how could a man do that? And it's disgusting. Whilst for a man, it's like, because I am a guy as well, I could go, I would never even dream of doing something like that. So what gives you the right? Because as a woman, you could almost justify it and go, well, that's what men do. But as a man, I know men don't do that.
A lot of girls do that.
Yeah, and it's not what men do. It's definitely not what men do. And that's the point that I'm trying to make is, okay, as a woman, you might be able to justify it. But as a man, you can't justify another man doing that. Because as a man, that's not what you do. As a boy, that's not what you do.
A lot of guys do, and a lot of women do. There's a lot of women harassment on men as well. So again, I want to make sure that I love men. I support and love men. But it's goes without saying, because you could come across, I could come across as like a a feminist, and in the way that I support women and support men.
You don't want to come across as a man hater, which
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And I think when people do come across as a man hater or a misandrist, to use the real term, you end up sort of diminishing the real problems. So like when you complain about the little problems all the time, which might not necessarily be problems, then the real ones, such as the case that you had, they'll be considered as nothing. And it's so sad to see, because you see that often, because rather than the right things getting attention, stories like that which should get attention, you get these little ones that get attention, and then people start thinking, oh yeah, it probably doesn't happen. It's just these little things.
It doesn't. The big ones mean absolutely nothing after a while. So
the big ones just don't get the media attention they deserve. So I mean, I'm still baffled by the sort of that story, because again, like, you hear it on the news, and you hear it on the news and you're disgusted by it all, but to hear it from someone that's experienced it and was told, by other women, not men, but by other women, just, shut up and get on with it. It's incredible. Like, as being in that position, well, how did you feel when a woman was telling, because you were at that moment, and I'm sorry to sort of put you back in that position almost, but at that moment, you probably looked at those women for a bit of help, like for them to come and, push him away or something, and they just sort of didn't do anything, just went, shut up.
The way it's almost like the way that they behaved was like, this has happened a billion times. So they were almost prepared for it. And I looked at them and I thought, I almost felt bad for them because here they are slaving away basically for this horrible, horrible man but because they probably want to be in the fashion business, and this was a very high company, they were just like willing to sell their souls. But you really don't. Sometimes you just have to put up with things to get to a level, and it's just like, and I look at the entertainment business, people have said you have to sell your soul to the devil to get to a certain level. And I know where I could be if I would have done. And things are changing. Things are getting better.
Yeah.
But the old school is still the old school,
Yeah.
and it's just, and we have a lot further to go. But I looked at these women like, I'm sorry. And I hope that this is worth it to you. And I kind of a little bit lost respect for them, but then again, that's their choice. And they want those careers, and who knows their backstory, and I shall not judge. So, but I just couldn't wait to finish the contract and get out of there.
If you could go back, would you have said something to the guy?
At that time, I wasn't prepared.
Okay.
Now I would be like,
but do you wish that, okay, so say for example, you're still the same age, everything's the same, but mentally you're what you are now, you're strong enough. Would you have, or would you have said it, if you know what I mean?
Yes, because something happened shortly thereafter. And I told the guy off because it was almost like still that other one was in my head. This other person berated me so badly that he wanted me to, it was more of a PR modeling job where it was an event where I had to be the speaker and speak on camera, and I was in heels and things like that. And he said, and it was a chef company. So it was a very high-end lobster company that I had to speak for. And he said, I want you to put bibs on guys and kiss them with a lobster, and then kiss them near them. I'm like, that's not what this was. And I called my agent and I said, I'm sorry, but this is not really what the contract was about. And she said, and he berated me so badly. And I finally said, you know what? And I hated to say this, but I said, there are prostitutes on the street down there. I said, you can certainly hire one of those girls because I'm no longer going to work from you. I may terminate myself right now. I was shaking all the way home as I was driving home. I cried. I called the agent and she's like, you know what? Call it a wash. Don't even worry about it. You could tell she was a little mad. She hadn't been there, but I don't put up, and you can smell it a mile away. And, and sometimes you're on a shoot where it's overseas and you're pretty much stuck, but you just have to kind of own it. That's happened a couple of times too, where it's like, and I will not go into those, but you're stuck. You're very stuck.
Yeah, no, I bet, especially if it's in like somewhere that you've never been before, and it's not like you've got millions and millions of pounds where you can just go, right, I'll just get a flight and get out.
Absolutely.
You've not a clue what you're doing, and so of course that's sort of almost an incentive to go, right, I'll just deal with it and not take this job offer again or whatever. But I mean, you didn't. And you sort of slightly mentioned it, and I want to hear more about it because I don't think it gets recognition. When we were talking about sort of harassment against women in the workplace, particularly in modeling, acting, etc. You mentioned sort of women on men harassment. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
I've never been privy to it. I've never seen it in the flesh, but I look at a lot of some women can abuse that power as well, whether they just be ultra masculine or whether they be really attracted to the person. And sometimes, that offers on the table. Well, if you do this, and I have not seen it, but I've had a lot of guys have to either put up with it by other men or some women. Yeah. So, but it's more so males with males if the males get it, but it does happen with the women as well. And women can be very mean to women too. There's been some sets where you'll be treated like absolute crap. Sometimes by wardrobe stylists, if you are a size extra small, and they'll give you an extra large and it doesn't fit, and they'll be nasty to you because you better just wear it, Yeah. But I just always find taking the higher road, and sometimes you really have to eat your pride and eat some humble pie and because it's like, if you want this, and again, and there's so many positives. I don't mean to sit there and downtrodden the entertainment business or
Yeah, of
anything like
course.
that. It's just interesting synopsis. And if your listeners prefer to hear, the other side of the glam, these are the real truths.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why I wanted to get you on is to hear more about the industry and sort of get more of for me personally, get more of a personal insight to it, because I can read it online and hear someone else do the interview and whatever, but I wanted to ask the questions myself and the questions that I can think of and respond, naturally to everything that you said. And like I've mentioned before, I'm completely shocked by it all. And you said you didn't want to sort of make out as if the entertainment industry is this horrible place. What would you say are sort of the unseen benefits of being in that position? I know traveling is a big thing for you. Maybe you can talk a bit more about that, because I've never traveled. I wanted to always travel. I can't wait for COVID to be over, save enough money and just
yeah,
go out there and explore and come to that
definitely.
diner, TGI Fridays, for that molten cake thing.
Yeah, so which is like so nothing compared to the other ones in America. You got to go to New York. I would say, I mean, it's just it is a grandiose smorgasbord of wonderful things. I mean, the networking. Every time you go on a shoot, I've taught myself come away with 3 people that you can either help, or you can collaborate with, or you can learn something from. Because these people are brilliant. You get to work with brilliant stylists and photographers and editors and publicists. And what a better way to network. And also, it's a high. It's almost like I don't do drugs anymore. And I just, like, even for the NFL, coming out of a stadium, out of a tunnel with 60,000 roaring fans, there's nothing more exhilarating than that. There's nothing more exhilarating than, and sometimes being on a runway show in New York, where there's like every camera and the music's just pumping, and you just feel like, and you're just being in heels and stomping, it feels wonderful.
Yeah.
You feel like you're walking on air, and it's very powerful. It's very empowering. And sometimes, we go after these auditions, we go in like 6 to 10 times and we don't get the role, and then you do get the role, and it's like, oh my God, it's just like, it's a win. And you can't, if you're signing up for it to make money, or to get fame and notoriety, you're in the wrong business, because not everybody is on the Super Bowl team, but there's other football players. So you've got to really look at it and take it for what it's worth. And just for the love of fashion, and when and then there's fitness, like there's so many different segments to modeling. I mean, I've made more on my hair, and sometimes they just use me as a body. So I will go in, I'm a body double, and they will just use my body for an actress that may not feel comfortable with her body, or doesn't have like the right look or something like that. And they'll superimpose everything. And so again, I've kind of considered a body model. So, but I've also done beauty, and there's so many different segments: beauty, hair, runway. The mecca is like the editorial, and those girls are usually sometimes very alien like, and they're like 6'3" or 6'2", and just gone. So that's that style of modeling. Whereas I would be considered not that. I can do editorial, and a lot of my pictures, I consider myself, my superpower in modeling is to be a chameleon. I can look so many different ways. I can look like a heroin addict. I can look like a complete heroin addict in a black and white photo, the way I pose, and I'm quite lean. So, and then I have really straight hair, so I can just bring it down and pop the cheekbones by just cutting water for the day. That's a lot of tricks that we do. You don't drink a lot of this on a shoot day, unless it's a fitness job. Just a lot of things, because then you get striation.
Okay, I see.
Cut the salt.
Yeah,
Yep, no French
so just to
fries.
get sort of ready. Yeah, no French fries.
Yeah.
That's mad. Especially in America, there's so many food places. Again, we're getting back to food. I'm getting distracted again. You mentioned,
anytime you want to talk about it.
I can't not ask about this, because you said, and I'm gonna quote you here. I don't do drugs anymore. Okay, so I want to know, what sort of drugs have you been doing at McDaniels?
I went through a stage in New York. I'll just be honest. I went through a stage in New York where I was a bona fide alcoholic. I truly lived that lifestyle for a little while. And my poison was both vodka and Jack Daniels. I loved Jack Daniels. And I smoked. I smoked Marlboro Reds, and I also smoked the non-filters that we would get from Europe. And then I just remember being on a, it just is like, look, it's like a movie looking back, but I was like on a rooftop penthouse in New York City, and I'd done coke, and I was on the top, and I think it was standing. And there's a scene in Forrest Gump. It's an American movie where Robin Wright Givens is on the top, and it's exactly what I was doing, and I was lost. There was a time where I'm not proud of those things that I delved into, but it made me who I am today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
And there's a lot of things besides that I won't get into, but I experimented and I was curious. And when you come from a small town, I think, and you're that curious and you're that ambitious and you're that driven, you really are fascinated by some of the dark side. Not meaning dark in a racist way, just sort of the more evil side of certain things, because it's fascinating. And when you're brought up so strictly, you want to know, and you want the exposure. And I am so glad that I did. I don't think I would take any of it back. I really wouldn't, because it made me
learn from it as well.
You do, and you are able to have sympathy.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of women now that I used to think, why don't you have a college degree? Why would you stay with that guy? I've seen too many things now where it's like, I understand that woman's trapped.
Yeah.
And I would do anything in my world to help her. And because I've been in relationships with very powerful men, and the glass house at the top of the hill, and you're driving your Porsche, is not as it appears, and you are earning these things. And I understand, and I would never judge anybody for their childhood, their upbringing, what they've been exposed to. Thou shalt not judge. And I used to be judgmental, and I'm really glad the experiences that I've had, I wouldn't take those back.
I think because you've had so many different experiences in different jobs, in different sectors, good experiences, bad experiences, that sort of has, made you into a well-rounded person in that sense, because you can relate to quite literally anyone. And for a podcast host, that's very helpful as well, because it means, your story, which, if I would have never thought I could relate to, I mentioned before, I could never relate to a former model, but there's elements of your life because of the so many things that you've done that I can relate to as well. And I think that's almost part of life, I guess, is to experiment as much as possible, not just for your own benefit, but also so that you don't judge other people for, different sort of things. Because I think as society, we are becoming essentially more judgmental because of social media and stuff like that. We see little things, for example, like, a lot of people would have judged models, cheerleaders, etc., especially in the UK where we don't have, cheerleaders and stuff.
Sure.
The assumption is, you're a dumb blonde that's only there because you look good, and I don't mean to be rude, but that is the assumption.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's, and just being able to say that you were in that position, you can learn that, oh, well, no, it's not. Or being, me having the privilege of interviewing you, I can learn that that's not the case.
That's what's really fun, because you can really turn people's minds around. People are like, sometimes people are like, oh my God, I didn't expect you to like talk like that. Like, I get that a lot. I didn't expect you to be so nice. Like, there's a lot that happens a lot. You're really nice, and they're almost like skeptical of. It's.
But again, I didn't expect to be able to relate with you. I didn't expect this to go on this long. Sure. I think this actually might end up being the longest one that I've done so far, and it's been such an interesting conversation, and I've learned so much from it. And I've not gotten through all the questions that I wanted to sort of ask you. I'm nearly on to midnight. Actually, it's like 11:45 right now.
Well, we can pinpoint the bullet points of the rest of the stuff that you want to talk about. So I want to make sure that you get it in. But I really enjoy talking to you too. And if you want to follow up, in the future of anything else,
we should definitely do a follow up. I just want to ask sort of two final questions.
Sure.
Just to sort of sum up, is I know you kind of touched on it, and you have dated people before. But why no marriage? Why no kids? Because the typical sort of assumption would be that you would want kids, especially sort of, you had this feminine career, and it's just the sort of natural. Again, another assumption from me, I guess.
Sure. I think I literally knew at age 4, I swear. I grew up really fast due to some circumstances of my environment, unfortunately. But I think I saw a woman on TV that was very empowering. And because I was sort of lost as a child in what my circumstances were at that point in my life, I looked at her and I sort of wanted to become a robot. And I thought, she's powerful. And I also looked at machines and robots like perfection and strength. And I never wanted anybody for the rest of my life to control me. And that was something that, as a child, there was a circumstance where it happened quite badly. And I think my brain was trained at that point of like, no one's going to tell me what to do ever again. And I have wonderful boyfriends. Every guy has been great, but I literally, Tarek, feel like a caged panther. The minute I get in a relationship, I'm like, oh, I need out. I need freedom. My favorite song in the world is Leonard Skinner, Freebird. And it's all about being free and not, I may love you, but I have to let you go. Maybe a partnership in the future would be better, where it's like, he lives in New York and I live in LA and we travel.
Yeah, like a long-term relationship.
I like that.
Long distance relationship.
Yeah, like a best friend that I don't have to see all the time and I have full freedom. Kids were never in the picture. I have so much love to give. So because I don't have either of those, I am a mother to my friends. I'm a mother as a mentor to so many young people. I want a platform of giving back constantly. I wanted, like, every day, I'm just helping someone all the time. And not that I'm like, the end all be all, but I really enjoy loving other people and caring about other people to the point where I'll put more of an emphasis on them than I will myself. And then I'll happen to ignore the issues that I have. And long story short, I'll make this very fast, but I shattered my leg and my arm.
Oh, I forgot about asking that.
On a huge studio film shoot in January of 2020. And it is called a catastrophic injury in the court of law. It has drastically changed my life. I was sort of an exercise addict. So if I ever had stress, and because I don't drink or do drugs or anything like that, I exercised and I worked out and I boxed. That's all been taken away from me. So where are my coping mechanisms? So I've had to really learn from this, but it really had to dig deep inside myself of like, you're not that strong right now. You are used to being a very powerful girl. And what scares me is if I were to walk around in Hollywood sometimes Los Angeles is not the safest area sometimes, I can't run away. I don't have the ability to run away from something. If there was a burning building, I'm sure my adrenaline would kick in, but I can't even walk up a step yet. So that power's been taken away. So I really have even more empathy for the handicapped. This injury has allowed that. And I'm thankful for it. And you probably just saw what happened to Tiger Woods as well. In that, and it's a similar injury, but I have the femur. Mine's the bigger bone on top of that, plus my arm. So it's just been a real experience. And my family was happy it happened in a way, because they said, you were running on high octane fuel and you were not sleeping and you were killing yourself. And I was killing myself in this rat race. And COVID happened at the same time, basically. I was in the hospital when Kobe Bryant died. Wow. I was in the hospital when the COVID cases started coming in. So it was just very interesting time.
So how did this injury come about then?
I'm actually under gag order. I can't talk about it because it's a huge film. Just a very bad accident during rehearsal. And I basically landed on concrete at night. So it was very cold hard concrete on my right knee and my left elbow, coming from a very high elevation onto the constant. Yeah, but I'm very lucky because I would have died within an hour of not getting to the hospital. I went home that night thinking nothing was wrong. I'm an athlete. Walk it off. I'm like, there was so much shock in my body that it just didn't. So I was blood clotting. That there was shattered bone through my body, and it was clotting my blood. So I would have died of a blood clot within the hour of going to the hospital. The next day after I did another job.
Wow.
I could barely drive, and I was getting honked at. Nobody honks at me. I'm a great driver, but I couldn't, and I have quite long legs, and I have a sports car. I could not get my legs into the sports car. Like it was too small, too compact. And then I have a heavy steering. I could barely steer the wheel. And I'm like, I call my mom. I'm like,
Something's wrong. Yeah.
something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Wow. Yeah. No.
I drove
that
myself to
sounds-
the emergency room afterwards.
Yeah.
And my car got towed.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's not the best day then.
Not really.
Wow. I mean, again, just to sort of go back there, I relate to this sort of idea of, I mean, again, I'm 19 years old. Who knows? Life could change. Is the idea of I feel, you know, like I don't really want to get married. I guess I want to help as many people as possible. And like for me, one of my personal sort of ambitions is, weirdly enough, again, another way I can sort of relate to you is I have this, you know, I want to, and again, this isn't sort of me being anti-American again, but it's,
No, go ahead.
I see in America there's an obesity problem, and in the UK there's an obesity problem as well, and the gap between America and the UK is getting smaller and smaller because the UK is getting more and more obese, and it's the same on the other side as well, in the sense that there are people that have eating disorders as well. I think it's Eating Disorder Awareness this week, or some week this week, and it's the same. And there's such a big issue around food and nutrition, and over the last few years I've sort of learned more about food and nutrition, and I've gotten into running and exercising and working out, and it feels amazing for me. But I grew up, especially when I was younger, like I was I was an obese kid. I was very overweight. I remember getting a letter. So we all got weighed at home, and this is one of my biggest motivators. Is we all got weighed in school, sorry, and then they sent a letter home, and on the letter it would tell us, you know, whether we were overweight or not. And I remember reading it. I opened the letter because it said my name, and I was young and I got excited. So, and I remember reading it, and it said, "Your son is very, very, very overweight." So it's not just one very. It wasn't just overweight. It was three veries.
Oh
And
my
I thought,
gosh.
wow. And I remember that was the point where I realized I had to lose weight. And it was like a 5-year process before I realized how to lose weight, because that is my motivator, because I want it to be not easier to lose weight, but I want people, especially young people, to know how to lose weight, or how to eat better, and how to have a better relationship with food. And kids, especially younger kids, get bullied for being large, and I hate that. I think out of everything, like with my siblings as well, I can appreciate obviously as siblings you insult each other all the time, but I never let my siblings say the word fat in the house ever, because I was called fat by not by my sibling. My sister never called it me, but by aunties, uncles, by cousins, like that were 10, 15 years older than me. And I remember, and they used to say it in a way that they'd think, oh, he's too stupid to understand. But I always understood what they were saying. They'd say it in my home language, so they say it in Bengali sometimes, and they think, oh, he would understand. But I was an intelligent kid. I knew what they were saying. And, you know, they'd speak to other people about it, and I'd be like, I can overhear the conversation.
Well, even if you couldn't understand the eye contact, you know when you're being talked about.
Exactly. Way. And especially, you know, I knew I was large as well. But I mean, again, to look at it in a good way, it's given me thick skin, and it's given me motivation to basically prove all those people wrong, not just fitness wise, because they're always shocked when they see me every summer, because they're like, oh, you've lost weight, oh, you go running, oh, you run 6 miles, what, like they're always shocked by that. And I'm like, yeah, because, and in my head, my response, I'm always like, oh, thank you. But in my head, I'm always like, yeah, because you used to call me fat all the time. That's why. You know what I mean? And like when they hear about things like, oh, I'm willing to do the podcast, or we don't have presidents sort of in school and stuff like that, but we have one thing called, you know, we have a head boy and a head girl. And I was lucky to be a head boy at my school. And when I told them that, and I've gotten onto newspapers and stuff because of that, because it's such a small town. And they're always like, oh my God, you do this, that, and that. And they're always so shocked by it. And I'm like, yeah, because you're my motivator from 15 years ago. Because I remember what you used to say to me. And again, that's sort of that's my goal, is I want to help, you know, these young kids that it's not their fault that they're, you know, fat, you know, or, you know, overweight, that they don't know anything about how to eat healthily. You know, maybe their parents don't know how to eat healthy. I want to do something that helps those kids. I'd rather do that than get married and live a luxurious lifestyle and go on couples holidays.
Oh my God, you're speaking my language, and I want you on my podcast to talk about this, if that's okay, because this is exactly what I do. This is exactly what I talk about. And I just interviewed a girl who had gone to fat camps. I mean, they all call it's MTV, you know, big MTV.
Yeah.
They had done a big documentary on the fat camps, and she went there 7 years in a row. She now is the biggest TikTok sensation about helping young teens lose weight in a very fun way. I would love to bring you on because that's so interesting, especially in a Muslim household
Yeah.
of being called that. And it is berating and it's abusive. But the thing is, look at it as a positive.
Yeah, you
They
got to.
drove
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah,
mean, you would be successful anyway, but you have a even bigger motivator.
That's my motivator. Yeah. That is one of my biggest motivators, potentially the
Love
biggest
that.
motivator,
Don't
because I know
question me.
what was said. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's like I know what was said. And even if and most of them don't remember it. So I've mentioned, the older cousins that I've got that used to say it to me. Now I'm almost on I'm on their level now. Because before I was like 9, 10 and they were like 20. Whilst now I'm 19 and they're 29. I can speak to them and be like, have a friendly conversation. And then so many of my cousins have said it. They go, oh, Tariq, you're a funny guy, or I can't believe we talk to each other like this. And then I go, yeah, do you remember when we were younger and you used to say this about me? And they go, no, I don't remember. Oh, that wasn't me, that was Thingy. And I was like, no, it was you as well. And I don't have any hate against any of them.
Right, but
I will never. They'll always be the motivator. At least their past selves will always be my motivator. And to be able to prove them wrong at the end, that's why I'm motivated to do a half marathon one day, is to be able to say, oh, I ran this many miles, or be able to say, oh, I can drive this car, I can give my dad this car, I can do this, or whatever, and I've helped this many people. Like it helps to have. I don't know. It's weird. It's like those little bad experiences. You can always turn them into motivators and positive elements.
absolutely, as long as you're happy doing it and you're doing it for yourself as well. If you're doing it just to spite someone, then it doesn't come from. It's got to be, but it's for you too. So I think that's perfect, and I fully agree with you. I'm the same way. I've used those same things. Like I think Lady Gaga, her boyfriend said, "You'll never make it without me." She's like, "Watch me," So
Who
that
the
was
hell
her.
is Lady Gaga's boyfriend?
It was some guy from like high school or college or wherever she was, and that would drove her every day of her life.
Yeah.
Watch me, and same with Barbara Corcoran. Barbara Corcoran, the big CEO. Anyway, she's on Shark Tank. It's a huge show here, but
I've heard
billionaire. Her husband said, "You'll never be anything without me." She's like, "See you later," and that was her driver.
It's those little motivators, those people that they're not they're not the motivator. The motivator is you because you want to do well. But those things, when you're down and out, or you can't do it, you remember when that person said, I need to prove this person wrong now.
Even when you're bloody and on the ground, that's your last fight. Exactly. I agree. That's awesome.
It's that last thing, and it's amazing. My final question to you is, if you could give,
we have time.
No, I'm gonna change. Yeah, so we got 10 minutes, I think.
Yep, we can do it.
If you could give your 19-year-old self, if you could go back and give your 19-year-old self some advice, 19, 18, roughly that age, what advice would it be?
Stop stressing out. You're gonna be fine. I'm still this age and I have like just such unbelievable stress and disbelief in myself. People think I'm the most confident person on the face of the earth. I'm highly insecure. I have to work on security issues every day, positive motivation, knowing that I can do it, know that I've fallen on hard times before, I can make it again. This particular one with the injury is a little scarier because I don't really know what's going to happen after this. But just tell yourself you're going to be okay. And you've got to do what you want to do. Don't listen to everybody else. If your parents want you to become a doctor and maybe you don't want to be a doctor, maybe you want to be something else, you got to go with your gut instinct. Go and take those risks. Keep taking the risks and believe in yourself. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's just like, it's so stressful, especially as a 19-year-old now with all the social media and everything like that. And stick to your morals, stick to your guns, and you can experiment and you can, go crazy. Always come back to ground zero if you can. Build an oak tree for yourself. Don't just be one of these windy trees that will be knocked over. Work on your core set of values. Work on what it means to be kind, what it means to be smart and have a heart. Don't lead with your looks. If you're a beautiful person, don't rely on your looks. You can get in an accident outside and get in a car crash and lose that. I have too many friends that are beautiful that have nothing on the inside, and they get plastic surgery after plastic surgery because it's never good enough. That's a package. That package fades. You've got to bring something on the inside. And I think beauty is from the inside out, truly. Some of the most beautiful people are not the most attractive, So I guess that's a lot of advice, but just believe in yourself and remain strong within yourself, probably.
And that is it for this week's episode of the podcast. I never thought I'd relate to a model before. It was such an interesting podcast. It was late at night, and honestly, I was so tired before it. I was like, why do time zones have to exist? Because she was on a different time zone completely, and I had to record it at 10 p.m. And it lasted all the way till like 12 a.m. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be shattered. It's going to be awful. And then 5 minutes in, I was loving it. Her answers were amazing. You know, the fact that we got a common sweet tooth, we both grew up in a religious household, so many things that we found in common. It just goes to show that, you know, if you go out and speak to people, you'll find similarities and interesting differences with people that you wouldn't have ever thought you'd find those things with. And that's what this podcast is all about. We haven't had a university experience or proper university experience, or maybe a proper gap year, or maybe we've just missed being able to meet new people and see our friends. But through this podcast, I get to meet some amazing people. You guys technically get to meet some amazing people and hear from them and learn from them. And I hope, you know, as a side note, I hope you've learned as much as I have. Or you've just sort of enjoyed it and it's been a great form of entertainment. I can't remember. No, this is the outro, isn't it? I can't even remember now. If you did enjoy, then make sure you smash that like button, share on your socials, tagging MMHY podcast on Instagram, so you don't miss next week's episode. But if you did watch this episode, then which you clearly have because you're listening to this now, thank you very much. Have an amazing week. Until next time.